Good evening and welcome into Tennessee Volunteers live on the Voice of College Football Network. Tucker Harlan and Jordan Binkley with you on this Monday evening. Happy that you guys could join us. If you're new here, please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football. Helps us out, helps us reach more people in the YouTube algorithm. And you know what? It helps you as well. You can share this with a friend. If they're looking for more Tennessee football content, tell them about us. We would really appreciate it, and you will really appreciate it in the end. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. As of 48 hours ago, I am a Nashville resident again, which is kind of strange to talk about after being in Knoxville for 5 years, but I'm back here in Nashville. Jordan, what about you? I'm assuming you weren't moving furniture around all weekend. You had a little bit of a more pleasant weekend than that.
No, I mean, not moving around furniture, but I've been doing lots of cleaning because my girlfriend's out right now. She's been traveling and stuff. So it's up to me to keep the whole house in check. And honestly, it's a lot more difficult than I expected it to be without
Really?
her here. So I'm cleaning constantly and everything. And that's pretty much what I've been up to for the most part. Not too much been going on, honestly.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have a lot going on here in the next few months, or really the next month, the lead up to college football season. But it's going to get even more exciting once we get into the season. And we are so close to fall camp starting. I believe we are we're definitely within a week, just a few days at this point. Really excited for that. Hoping for some good storylines to come out of there. Although sometimes no news is good news, just like a certain situation we're going to have to lead the show off with today, because we did not address this last week with Rick Butler because all the details were still kind of emerging. And now the picture is a little bit clearer. It looks like things are going to be okay, but this is now the third time you've had a scare with a high profile player like this. And of course, I'm referring to what you might call boomers surrounding Boo Carter potentially leaving Tennessee. And again, I've not seen anything else about him leaving for sure. But it's been a few days now since this news broke that he was flirting with some other places, and it's finally beginning to die down, but it is still concerning, Jordan.
Yeah, I was on Twitter earlier today and I almost got caught. I mean, the page, I forget the name of the page on there, but they were saying that he was returning to practice and everything like per Austin Price, but I did my research on that and there was nothing to confirm that Austin Price said that he was returning to practice. But I have like heard online and everything. I mean, apparently his mom posted on Facebook that she was getting her first three outfits together for the season for Boo Carter. So maybe he comes back, but I mean, nothing's been confirmed as far as I know.
Yeah. What I did see tonight, there was a note from Austin Price that said he was at least in town. We don't know if he's with the team. He might be at the team meeting tonight. Supposedly, they're having one, but he has been away. We know that he's missed several team activities, workouts. In particular, are things that he's missed. So that is a little bit concerning. And we will know more here in the next couple of hopefully days, maybe hours. Who knows? This situation has been ongoing, and there have been some fascinating twists and turns. I think there were some thoughts of Nico potentially talking to him out in California. Or at least he was rumored to be doing that. We don't know for sure. But also there was some confirmed information that came out. I believe it was CBS Sports that released this piece of news that he changed agents to Omar Cooper from his previous agent, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But those of you who are NBA fans, I know neither you or me, Jordan, really watch the NBA, but that is Ace Bailey's rep, who essentially had Ace Bailey, who was drafted this year by the Jazz, hold out for a while in order for him to get a better deal as a rookie. That's who we're talking about here. A very irresponsible agent that Boo Carter has hired. And according to the old agent, he didn't even know that Boo had signed with this guy. He had stopped contacting him after a while, but there was no communication between the two of them, which doesn't sound great, to be completely honest.
So he currently has the NBA agent right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's a little concerning. I've never, you never really hear much about rookies in like any sport, like holding out. So I don't know. Maybe that explains a little bit of the situation going on, but a lot of this stuff with Boo Carter just seems to be like rumor related. Like you said, like him being in California, I think that has been proven, but like he's been like linked to Colorado, which I don't know if that's ever been confirmed or not. Um, but it's just like an interesting situation. And I know like everyone's just desperately trying to find out what is going on and is if he's going to be returning to Tennessee. I know that I think it's been confirmed that like team council has met with I think Josh Heupel and everything and has discussed the situation, which by the way, I think it's pretty cool that Heupel does that he takes like advice from some of the team leaders and everything like that. But of course, like Josh Heupel said before, like no one's bigger than the power T, and that includes me when he was talking about Nico. Hopefully, I don't know, like I don't want like there to be a situation where Boo Carter like becomes just a constant topic for the remainder of the season. Like hopefully like Tennessee needs him pretty significantly this year. I think almost everyone can agree with that. But if he ends up becoming like a problem in the locker room and everything like that, I mean, it could be detrimental to the team. So, I mean, it's an interesting situation to say the least. And like, hopefully by the time fall camp comes around, like hopefully he's in attendance. Hopefully he's hashed things out. I mean, I don't think anything's like broken beyond repair necessarily, but I mean, he definitely is going to have to like win back some of the teammates, I would imagine, like if he does stay on the roster.
That's definitely what it feels like. He is, in a way, he has strained some relationships with teammates, it sounds like. But you would, again, like you said, Jordan, hope it is not beyond repair, because if it is, then, I mean, what's the point of even having him around at this point? It's just not good for anybody involved. But overall, I think there are some things that you have to discuss about the state of this program, and not necessarily bad things, but this world of NIL and transfer portal stuff that we're living in, it's constantly evolving. And Tennessee has for the most part handled it well, but I think there are some things that it can do better to sustain the program here in the future. And I think when you look at everybody involved in this situation, nobody is necessarily free of blame here. Obviously, Boo Carter is the center of this whole thing, and there are some known maturity issues there. And look, here's the thing: social media and game action doesn't tell you everything, but he legit punched a guy against Alabama last year and was not flagged for it. He got away with that in the game. If that happens, maybe the result of that game changes because of how close it was when he did it. Who knows? You gotta realize that the game situation there and not do something like that. He was also the one that got caught doing some kind of TikTok dance by Heupel in the locker room after a game. I think it was Chattanooga, maybe. So that happened. And again, maybe I'm reading too far into that stuff, but sometimes little things like that on the surface are indicative of who somebody can really be. So that's it from Boo's perspective. But again, there are other people involved, not just within the football program, but I think within the athletic program as a whole. You look at this from Josh Heupel's perspective, and look, I have this problem myself, but sometimes I feel like he just constantly focuses on the good in people as opposed to maybe looking into some of the red flags. And in some of these situations, like the same thing with Nico, right? You trusted this guy a lot, and I think he does still really like Nico, but he ignored the obvious red flags with the family stuff. And, it came back to bite this program back in April. And ultimately, he's the one out there doing the recruiting. So I think you do have to think about that a little bit. And, we can't be too critical of Josh Heupel just because he has gotten this program back to national relevance. And I think that is really, really important to understand. It's just, you've got to find a way to see those red flags and address them when you see them. And then the other thing too, and this is not solely on Josh Heupel, I don't think, because Josh Heupel could have some help from above, from Danny White specifically. And like I mentioned earlier, this little rant I have here, Tennessee has done really well in navigating all these new changes in the college athletics landscape. But there's one pretty big thing missing, and that is the general manager in all this. Tennessee is one of, not as if everybody has a general manager, but you look around, like some of these programs like Alabama, Oklahoma, Stanford all have notable GMs, but Tennessee doesn't have one yet. And right now in college football, you are seeing a little bit of a trend in college athletics where you've got these coaches who are leaving to take coordinator jobs, whether or not that's in the pros like Jeff Hafley at Boston College, or like Chip Kelly leaving UCLA, going to Ohio State and being an offensive coordinator. They just don't want to have to deal with that stuff anymore. That's why these places are hiring general managers. And, Heupel should not have to worry about all of this stuff. And, you shouldn't have to re-recruit your own roster and, make 7-figure offers to these 19-year-olds who frankly don't deserve the $7 million just yet. So while I do think there is some blame to be on Boo and Heupel a little bit here, I think Tennessee as a whole needs to get better in a few different areas, just navigating the landscape than what it is right now.
Yeah, and I think you're on to something. We've talked about it before. I'm honestly surprised that Tennessee hasn't made any moves with general manager because, like you said, we've seen other teams start to do it. It seems like it's going to be the future of college football, especially since NIL is here to stay and everything like that. And I think you have a good point with Josh Heupel too. Like, seeing the best in people always and stuff like that. Like, I don't have the stats readily available, but just watching games last year, it seemed like Tennessee was penalized an awful lot. And that wasn't something that you really seen as much from some of these successful teams like Alabama and everything like that. So, not to say that I know what's going on in the locker room or what's happening at the practice field and stuff like that. But I know from my experience, playing football, you want a hard coach that still loves the team, right? Still sees the best in you, but you want a coach that's going to push you to your limits and everything like that. And don't get me wrong. I think Josh Heupel is a great coach for Tennessee. He's the best coach that Tennessee's had since Philip Fulmer. But I personally would like to see him be a little bit tougher on his team, which I feel like we haven't seen much out of it. It would be nice if Tennessee could be as disciplined as some of these other teams, not making as many mistakes and false starts and holdings and such like that. Because it's hard to win a game when you're losing 50 to 100 yards and penalties each game. That's putting you behind just to begin with. And I know his quarterbacks don't turn over the ball much, but those penalties rack up too. And I feel like it's led to a lot more punts. And how often have we seen Tennessee punt in these past couple of years, compared to when Hendon Hooker was there? I remember maybe it was the 2022 season or something like that. Tennessee didn't punt but 5 times, I think, majority of the season. But that seemed to have changed as of late. So, I start to wonder how hard Josh Heupel is cracking down on these players. And I guess we might get a little bit more perspective with that based on Boo's situation.
Yeah, I think you're right about the penalties, obviously. Those are very frustrating and unfortunately have been a problem for Josh Heupel and company since his tenure at Tennessee started. But I do think somewhere in there, and I'm not saying you have to be like the previous 3 as far as being a disciplinarian goes, because we know those three could be. But you got to find the happy medium, because it doesn't feel like Heupel has teeth sometimes, and I think ultimately that is hurtful for a team. You need tough love every now and again. Sometimes you need to be feared rather than loved, but you don't want to be feared all the time.
Yeah, like I said, like I mean, I think he's a pretty good ball coach. I mean, he obviously knows schemes wise, like his schemes well, like especially offensively. And we've seen a resurgence with Tennessee's defense as of late. Like Tennessee's defense last season was better than their offense in a lot of ways. I mean, outside of Dylan Sampson's production and everything like that. But like, you just like to see Tennessee make less mistakes and just crack down on the little details. I mean, I remember like when I used to play football, like if one of us kept making a mistake, the whole team ran. And I felt like it made us better as a team. Like of course I'm talking about the high school level. I mean, I never played collegiate ball, but I mean, I'm sure some of that crosses over to an extent. And I don't know. I think Tennessee could benefit from a little bit more discipline. And, like I said, I guess we'll see with the Boo Carter situation. I mean, do you think that there's any chance that he possibly gets suspended or anything like that? Like, I know it's just speculation, but I mean, like abandoning like team practices and stuff like that, which has been confirmed at this point. That's a glaring issue that needs to be resolved like very quickly. Like you don't want him bailing on the team later in the season. As you've said, he's already showed issues even before this, like with the throwing the punch against Alabama, the live in the locker room, which I completely forgot about that, by the way. And I remember when I first saw that come out, I thought that I was like, what in the world's going on? I've never seen anything like this happen.
You're just a silly freshman. That's what I thought.
Yeah, first. That's what I thought too. But I mean, look at where we're at now.
Yeah. Maybe that is indicative of what's going on. And to answer your question about potential punishments, as far as suspensions, I'm not entirely sure, because a lot of these kids don't get suspended anymore. It's just not something you see very often, unless they commit a targeting penalty in a game. But I do think because we've seen this around different SEC programs, like I think Georgia, for example, most notably when things happen off the field, what things I'm talking about. There is a little bit of an NIL pay cut when that stuff occurs. So it's something you can do to help hopefully try and curb this stuff. Off the field issues have not really been a problem in the Josh Heupel era, aside from maybe 2 or 3 instances, unlike what they're doing down there in Athens. But this situation is obviously very, very concerning.
And I will say too, like, I know we're talking a lot of negative about this situation, everything like that. But I mean, remember all the rumors that there were with James Pierce too, and how he was difficult to work with. Yet, like, we didn't really necessarily see it on the field. All of it was like hearsay, like apparently at practices or whatnot. And I even saw something that came out recently, like with him with the Falcons, apparently fighting his teammates or whatever. I mean, of course, you don't want anything like that. But I mean, as far as that we could see on surface, it seems like James Pierce was wrangled in pretty well during the season, like not really many flare-ups when it came to his actual gameplay. So maybe Tennessee can get it situated. I mean, if all the rumors are true about James Pierce, then maybe Tennessee can find a way to deal with Boo Carter's situation as well.
Yeah, there are genuine reports now about the Pierce thing and being in the center of some fights in practice. Those happen every now and again. Guys are going at it a little too hard. It's just not discussed a whole lot. But you just kind of move on from them at that point, unless you really see something pop up in the middle of the game, and then you can be a little bit more concerned reasonably. Posty says, if our defense can be as good or better than last year, our offense needs to average 20-ish points for us to be successful. You would hope the offense can get a little bit better than that, I would say, because it overall, like I was doing some research on this just to see what a good offense puts up in SEC play normally. And usually the ones over 200 are nice, solid offenses. And the ones that put up under 200 points in SEC play, they can be a little rough at times. Tennessee was right at 200, so as mediocre as you can get. And of course, some of that can be from defensive scores as well. Not as if Tennessee had too many of those, but you get what I'm saying. So offensively, I would hope this team gets at least somewhat closer to what it did in Josh Heupel's first 2 years on the job. But I don't think I can guarantee that with this team.
Well, Tennessee was able to find success like they did, like when Josh Heupel initially got there, then I think Tennessee won't have any problems this season whatsoever. I mean, but 20 points and everything like that, like maybe against a lot of these teams, but when you start talking about like Alabama, like Ryan Williams and stuff like that, like 20 points, I don't know if it's going to be able to cut it. I mean, even if Tennessee's defense is really good, I mean, there's still a lot of high-powered offenses around there. And I mean, like, who knows like how good Florida is going to be this year too. I mean, Tennessee's going to have to face against a couple good offenses this year. And I don't know if 20 points will get the cut, but I do agree that Tennessee's defense, I don't really think that they take a step back much this season, even with like losing James Pierce and everything like that. It seems like Tennessee's plugging in the right pieces, like the addition of Colton Hood and then even Josh Shell, like we'll see how he ends up being and everything like that. So I don't think Tennessee has much to worry defensively, but we'll see how they end up being on the offensive side of the ball. But I mean, I think it's going to start with the quarterback situation a lot of the times. And one thing that I will say about Tennessee's offense, I feel like we will see better offensive line play too. The more I've thought about it, because I've been critical on Tennessee's offensive line in the past, the more I think about it, partially that could be to blame for Nico taking too long to make decisions in the pocket. He could have inadvertently made the offensive line look worse than they actually are. I mean, because if you look at the roster, a lot of them are highly touted recruits and a lot of them are just some giant big dudes. Like all of them seemingly are around like 6'6", like 330 pounds. So, I mean, maybe the offensive line takes a step up. And I think Tennessee's done a good job in the offseason getting some from the transfer portal. And we'll see how David Sanders ends up playing this year. Presumably he'll be the starter. So, I mean, I think Tennessee takes a step up in that direction, but they're surely not going to replace the production that Dylan Sampson has, even though I'm a huge Deshaun Bishop fan.
Yeah, and looking at Posty's comment here, the number of points allowed, I think that's the fewest since the Fulmer era. I don't know when exactly that would have been, but I do believe it's certainly the best one I can remember just being in my social conscious, because that only came about in 2009 or 10 when things really started going downhill for Tennessee in football. So yeah, it's definitely the best one I can remember here lately. But on that note, Jordan, do we want to jump into a little bit of a fall camp preview here?
Oh yes, I'd love to. So
of course that is starting later this week, I believe Thursday. Neither of us have the exact dates down, but it's usually around August 1st when it starts. And obviously there are some storylines for this team to monitor. Jordan, give me your 3 biggest storylines you are watching going into fall camp.
Number one, we just mentioned, I'm really curious to see how Josh Heupel responds, whether he talks to the media or not about the Boo Carter situation. I feel like he has no other choice but to, because it's going to be asked. And, I know Josh Heupel doesn't always give the most interesting answers in the world. He kind of keeps it safe a lot of time, but I would like to see what he has to say about Boo Carter's situation. And, I'm also interested to see how the wide receivers do, because, I feel like we haven't talked about them as much lately. And, Mike Matthews, you would assume that he's going to play a pivotal role in this offense. I know he didn't get as many reps as a lot of Tennessee fans hoped last season, but I would like to see how he does. And there's a lot of hype in the spring game with Rad Jackson, and even like hearing at practices about how Braylon Staley's like really taking a step up this year. So I'm excited to see how the wide receivers end up doing at the camp, and hopefully we get to see some of that. And, like I mentioned it too, the offensive line, like I really want to see how David Sanders does. I mean, considering that he's going to be a true freshman this year and he's probably going to be the starter, how is he going to be able to hold himself? Because, a lot of times I feel like the offensive line, you're looking for more experience. And like, I don't think Tennessee has much of a choice but to play him this year. And like you've talked in the past about the importance of team chemistry, the offensive line. Well, I mean, we got 3 new faces there with David Sanders and the 2 transfers. So, I mean, I want to see how well that they mesh and everything like that. Like, I'm just really focused on the offensive side of the ball a lot for this fall camp because like I've said, I feel like defensively there's not as much to worry about. Maybe from the safety position, but I mean, cornerbacks, Tennessee seems to be doing just good. You know that Rodney Gardner's always going to regroup with the defensive line, and I think the linebackers are going to take a step up this season too. So, what are like your most interesting storylines heading into fall camp?
Yeah, so you mentioned the offensive line, and I think you're spot on with that. It is an important talking point just because there are 4 new faces up front, essentially, for the offensive line. But I center my focus there around how well connected those guys can get. I think chemistry is a little bit of a lost art in the transfer portal era, and I think that's why you're not really seeing some of the teams that are supposed to be good take off until like the middle of the season now, just because and I think it was a problem for Tennessee last year. And some of it had to do with injury with Lance Hurd. That's definitely a part of it. But if you're not well connected up front, like you can have some good offensive linemen up front, but if you lack that chemistry, then you can get yourself in some trouble for sure. And right now, I think Tennessee has some really, really great prospects up front. Obviously, you mentioned David Sanders, and that's one that I'm looking forward to seeing just because he's one of the highest rated recruits in Tennessee football history. How does Lance Hurd make a jump in year 2 in the Heupel offense? You've got 2 guards in Wendell Moy and Sam Pendleton that are quality transfers. How well have they adjusted to this system? And how are they going to fit with the rest of the offensive line? Pendleton is supposed to be one of the breakout transfers this season. And then Posty mentioned it here. The center is a talking point. Jordan, can you name me the guy that played center before Cooper Mays at Tennessee?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
It's difficult. I do know this, but it is difficult because Cooper Mays played that position for so long.
Honestly, it's been so long. I did, obviously, but I can't think of it off the top of my head because it seemed like Cooper Mays was there for a century.
Yeah. Brandon Kennedy.
Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, he played, I guess he was there the entire Pruitt era because he followed Pruitt from Bama to Tennessee, got injured in like the first week of the season in 2018, and then played the next 2 years. So he was the center before Cooper Mays, which, again, that feels like an eternity ago because Cooper Mays was there for so long. But, he was the real anchor on that defense and or offensive line. And, excuse me, they really, he was the glue that held them together last year, it felt like. And, of course, you got a whole new group of guys. How does William Satterwhite or whoever slides into that role, maybe they slide Pendleton over, or Nick Moore was a guy that I saw getting reps in the spring game. That's obviously a possibility too. So I'm very intrigued by the chemistry up front. Want to see how that progresses into fall camp. And then just to spice things up, I am looking a little bit on the defensive side. Who emerges as the guy on the defensive line? Because we knew about James Pierce the last couple of seasons, and even in what was not as good of an encore performance last year as what he had in 2023, he was still very good for this team, put up some very nice numbers last season. But you look now, you would think it's probably going to be Josh Josephs, right? Because he was in that same position as James Pierce, and he's not going to be in that shadow anymore. And he is really, really explosive off the edge. So you would think it's him, but you got a couple other guys that could potentially break out. Tyree West is a name that I think Rick mentioned when he was on with us last week. Or it could be one of the interior guys. Bryson Eason, this is, I believe, year 6 in the program for Bryson Eason. He is the same age as me. So maybe he comes out and has a really nice season. Or Jackson Moy, you got to see glimpses of him last season, but he was stuck behind Omar Norman-Lott and Amari Thomas in the rotation. Not as if he didn't play. He did play a good bit last season, but he's a guy that's really expected to step up this year. So just kind of monitoring that right now. And then my third one, I'm going to go with the health of Jermon McCoy. Because again, we talked about this with Rick too. It doesn't feel like he's a guy that is a player that is going to make or break your game against a certain marquee opponent. It just doesn't feel like that's going to happen if he's not out there, just the way this team has bulked up in the secondary. But I think you are not as good of a unit without him, obviously, just because of everything he brought to this team last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think McCoy, he was pretty much the best player on Tennessee's defense last year. And, you would hope for him to be healthy and everything. And I think we talked about it last week that, we wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play immediately, but I think that he can be an important player to the offense. Especially, like I mentioned earlier, like with the Ryan Williams, he's a dangerous threat. But I think Tennessee also has some other talented corners on the roster. Ricky Gibson's coming back. Colton Hood, I think, is going to be a special player for Tennessee, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, McCoy's injury situation is definitely another one of the big topics going into it. But I just wonder how much we're going to see from him through fall camp, to be honest.
Yeah. And an ACL is nothing easy to try and recover from. And there is a good chance you just don't see much of him at all, just because, he's still in the recovery process. It's like what happened with Cooper Mays back in 2023 with the hernia surgery that he underwent, and that took a little bit of a recovery time for him and ultimately kept him out for a few weeks to begin the season. Posty mentioning Caleb Herring potentially being a guy that breaks out this season for Tennessee on the defensive line. We'll see if it's him. There is a lot of different players on this defensive line that could potentially break out. Another one I didn't mention, I didn't realize he still had eligibility left until I got my preseason magazine, but Don Bailey is another guy that is still hanging around and could do something for this team. You never know. And then, of course, you've got Jordan Ross, who I would hope he can have a breakout year to get that bad taste out of our mouths from the penalty he committed against Arkansas. That ultimately, I think, helped Arkansas get back into that game and come back and win it. That among other things, but that's another guy on the edge that could potentially break out for Tennessee this season. But those are my top 3 storylines, and I'm sure there are plenty of others. And Jordan, you mentioned the wide receivers. Who is that breakout guy too? Because there are a few different guys that could potentially break out this season. And, Josh Heupel doesn't like to play a ton of them, but, you get past the first 3, it's all young guys, essentially. And we didn't even mention the running back spot. I think a lot of us are just penciling in Deshaun Bishop there, and I think that's understandable. But he's a guy that has dealt with a lot of injury in his Tennessee career. So I would hope that he can stay healthy. But you do have another guy in Star Thomas, too, that's been proven elsewhere to be a good fit for an offense. So maybe that is another one to keep an eye on. And of course, we all know the obvious one. We didn't mention it because it's so obvious, but the quarterback situation, we will all be watching that as fall camp progresses. All right. Well, we have gone through just about everything on the fall camp front, but we do have some more recruiting news this week. And at first, Jordan, I thought it was just going to be minor news and notes from us on the recruiting front going into tonight. But then something happened in the last 24 hours that I was not expecting. I was caught totally off guard by it. But it is a welcome surprise, and that is a commitment from four-star athlete Joel Wyatt. Jordan, your initial thoughts on Joel Wyatt?
Well, thankfully, I got a chance to look at some of his film, and I mean, he seems to be a very interesting player that Tennessee got. I mean, he's listed at 6'4", 195. I mean, and he's played a little receiver. They had him like listed as safety, although like on his film, it seemed like he played a lot more outside linebacker than he did safety. So I'm not quite sure like what he's going to end up playing at Tennessee, but I'll say on offense, he seemed to be a pretty good deep threat. I mean, it seemed like most of his plays, he was either going downfield, making contested catches, or he was like taking a screen pass. And, he's a little bit more shifty than you would think for someone as long as him. And speaking of long too, I mean, like, he's like routinely getting past a lot of these defenders, seemingly like burning them. But he doesn't necessarily look that fast on film. Maybe it's the camera angle. Maybe it's something else. But I honestly think that it's because he's just got such long legs that it just
long
doesn't.
Strides, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like he's running as fast as he truly is. And then he's like, he's only 195 at 6'4", but I mean, he's shown that he's not afraid to lower his shoulder on some plays. And I mean, I've seen a couple where he was stiff arming, and he seems like a hard receiver to tackle, at least offensively. And then when you go to the defensive side, like I said, he primarily seemed to be an edge rusher, but he made a lot of tackles in the backfield. I mean, a lot of the time he was going back there, he was stopping the running back dead in their tracks. But I didn't see too much of him pressuring the quarterback, and maybe that is because he kind of played a safety outside linebacker hybrid. I mean, like I said, on his film, it looked more linebacker-ish. But I mean, if he is going to play linebacker at Tennessee, I will say like the biggest thing is he's going to have to put on a significant amount of weight. And who knows? I mean, we've seen it before, like Tennessee players get bigger. And then how about that Cal receiver that was making waves around Twitter and all the muscle mass that he put on?
Oh, yeah, I saw that guy.
Yeah.
Where did he transfer from again? I've forgotten.
It may have been like an FCS school. I can't really remember. But yeah, I mean, that dude had a crazy transformation. So I mean, with the current like strength staffs that a lot of these college football programs have, like I'm sure he can get on the weight, but I mean put on some weight, but I don't know if he could put on like 50 pounds plus in like a year. So he might be a project for Tennessee, I would imagine, unless something crazy happens. But what are your thoughts on him? Because I was honestly impressed with this film.
So I think he is among probably the top 5 most intriguing recruits in this 2026 class. I would say you put the 2 5-stars in there, Faison Brandon, Gabriel Ascenda. Braden Rouse is another one that sticks out to me just because of that same versatility factor you talked about. Legend Bay with the breakaway speed, obviously. And then the other two that really fascinate me are the Mississippi duo down there in Jackson Academy. I think both of those guys could bring a lot to this team. But you look at Joel Wyatt, and it's a very interesting story because he was playing for Webb Bell Buckle, and it was, I think, maybe 2 days after he announced he was transferring, they announced they were not playing football in 2025. So maybe he found out that was happening before, and then he decided to transfer high schools, which that makes total sense. Your football program's not playing. Why waste your time there? So he transferred to Oakland High School, which, if you know anything about high school football in Tennessee, they are the perennial public school power. Sorry to those of you who live in Maryville, Tennessee. It's just the truth. Yeah, I feel like you get way more standout recruits there, and Tennessee has gotten several over the years there. Most recently, the running back Dwayne Morris, who was between Tennessee and USC, and then another one. This is a little further back, about 10 years ago now, but Jack Jones, offensive lineman from the Butch Jones era, he is an Oakland Patriot as well. So he's going to be there now, and he's going to have a lot more eyes on him than he did probably at Webb Bell Buckle, which I think could be a good thing. And he's going to be going up against more than likely tougher competition as well in the 6A level. That's as good as it gets in the public school ranks. And when you look at his film, and my biggest question is, what does Tennessee want to do with him? Because there is so much to look at. Because I think his best qualities are, A, the fact that he can deliver some pretty violent hits. You saw it every now and again in the backfield. And B, his verticality. He's obviously 6'4", so he's got that going for him. But you could see him high-pointing footballs back there as a wide receiver. And even as a safety, he had some pretty nice-looking plays and just going up and getting up high in the air and trying to go for the ball. And that's exactly what you want at both of those positions. But again, it all comes down to what Tennessee wants to do with him. And I know in some of the other recruiting pitches, like Vanderbilt specifically, who was the other team that was really after Wyatt, they wanted him playing wide receiver. And to me, it doesn't look like Tennessee wants him playing wide receiver. Again, we'll see what happens. It's unclear what Tennessee wants to do. I know when we had Ryan Shumpert on, this has been 3 or 4 weeks ago now, but he was mentioning it's going to be the defensive line thing. They're going to pretty much turn him into an edge rusher and make him gain all that weight, which he'd have to if he was going to play there or outside linebacker. But it's just there's so many different things to choose from. Like, I think whatever it is you want him to be, he'll be it for you. But you just got to tell him what to do, I think is the big thing. But overall, I'm very impressed with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about him too, and I'm excited that Tennessee's been getting seemingly a lot of these type of players in this recruiting class, like, that can play multiple positions. But I'm with you, like, I mean, he seemingly like does well at wide receiver. I mean, like I said, he's played a lot off the edge, but it's like the biggest question is, what does he play? And I think he can fit in anywhere. And even on his receiving highlights, I saw him make a couple of blocks on there too, or at least one. I saw that he included a blocking highlight on there too. So I mean, I feel like he can do a little bit everything. They even had him in the return game at some point, I think his sophomore season. So I mean, he's the true definition of an athlete. And I see 24/7 had him listed as the number 5 athlete in the country. So, I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see what he ends up playing at Tennessee. But I feel like, the fact that he can play multiple positions is a good problem to have. But I mean, he's surely going to have to choose between wide receiver or like outside back or like, defensive line, because there's no way he can play both. I mean, there's no way.
So that is now 22 commitments in the class of 2026 for Tennessee. Just going back through some of these, of course, you've got the 2 quarterbacks in the class, which I already mentioned, Legend Bay and Faisal Brandon. Although Bay, we all know will not play quarterback in the class. Wide receiver, you've got 3 of them right now: Tyreek King, Zayden Anderson, recently upgraded to a 4-star, and I guess Javonte Smith, although he can play safety as well. And then Anderson can play DB too if you really wanted him to. So those are guys listed as receivers. Carson Snead at tight end, I guess no news is good news on that front, because he's been shopping around this summer, looking at other places like I know Florida, Colorado, and North Carolina were 3 of the programs that were involved in potentially getting him to go elsewhere. So You have those programs. Taking a look at him, you got the 3 offensive linemen. I mentioned Asinda earlier. And then you've got JB Shabazz out of North Carolina, and then Edward Baker from Baltimore. Defensive linemen, again, this could depend on what you want to do with Joel Wyatt, but that is 5 guys that this team has. CJ Edwards, Zach Groves, the defensive lineman from Middle Tennessee, Kedrick Golston the second, Darion Albert, and Daryl Rivers. 3 linebackers. You got Braylon Outlaw, TJ White, and Braden Rouse. Jamian Theodore is your lone corner. And you've got 3 safeties in the class with KJ McLean, Luke Thompson, and Joel Kambe. Still no running back in the class yet, but we'll get into it here in just a second. But there is a potential for some more commitments on the horizon, one of which is a running back. So let's go ahead and get into those now, because August is really the last big month in the recruiting cycle now. You occasionally get some surprises on signing day, but for the most part, I would not get my hopes up on anybody potentially flipping to Tennessee on signing day. So the first one we have to keep an eye on, and he commits on Sunday. This isn't even a 2026 kid, by the way. This is a 27 kid. 4-star quarterback Jace Johnson will be committing on August 3rd. I can't lie, I don't know a ton about him just because he's a 27 kid, and that's still an entire cycle away. But when you're building up these classes, quarterbacks are generally what you build it around. You know, you look at the 26 class, who was the first recruit in that class for Tennessee, Faison Brandon, and he committed about this time of year in 2024. So this is usually when you see that first wave of kids in the next class start to commit, and this would be an important get for Tennessee should it really start to try and recruit its 27 class here in the next month or so.
Yeah, with JC Johnson, like I haven't seen much on him as well. I mean, but he's listed as a 4-star, which, you know, is subject to change with how young he is. But I will say, Tennessee seems to be planning for a long-term future here at quarterback. Like, I honestly like what Josh Heupel's been doing. I mean, here we are with Joey Aguilar seemingly going to be the starting quarterback for the season, but then you have Merklinger, who is a 4-star, right behind him, and then you got George McIntyre, who used to be a 5-star, got bumped down, and then like Faison Brandon coming in next year's class, and then now we got Johnson here, and he's possibly coming to Tennessee too. So like Tennessee seems to be looking long term at the quarterback position, which I think is very good because you know how much Josh Heupel likes his quarterbacks. I mean, everywhere he's been, their quarterbacks have found success, whether it was with like Landry Jones at Oklahoma, or even like, it sounds funny to say now, but like Drew Lock at Missouri, who did really well there. And then not to mention the UCF quarterbacks of Dylan Gabriel, who is like in Heisman contention this past season with Oregon. So, I mean, Josh Heupel knows how to find quarterbacks. And I like that a lot of these recruits are wanting to come to Tennessee because, you know, I don't think I've ever seen this much success, or at least in terms of recruiting quarterbacks, since Josh Heupel's gotten here. I mean, Tennessee's had a few good quarterbacks in the past with, like Tyler Bray and Josh Dobbs in like recent memory, but like they weren't as high of recruits as Faison Brandon or even like George McIntyre. So, I mean, it's pretty exciting to see that. And, you know, maybe Tennessee's planning on a long-term run of success, and it would be fun to see.
Yeah, you did leave a couple of notable ones out of there. You left another Milton out of there, Mackenzie Milton.
Oh, yeah.
Who, you know, he was Heupel's first quarterback at UCF. I guess he carried over from the Frost era, but of course the transfer portal wasn't that big back then. And then here's a real throwback for you, Jordan. Utah State, Chucky Keaton, back in 2015, I believe. He was there.
Yeah.
So
and he put up
that's like one of the first big ones he worked with.
Yeah, and he was pretty good too. Like I think we talked about it recently. He almost upset Auburn, wasn't that right? Like,
yeah, 2011.
Yeah, I mean, like Chucky Keaton was even good, and I mean, like not necessarily your traditional quarterback. He got moved to tight end, I think. Maybe played a little bit of fullback in the NFL. But remember Blake Bell? That was also under Josh Heupel as well. So, I mean, he's had some notable quarterbacks in his time, and he's seemingly keeping this trend going with Tennessee.
He can do it with Legend Bay too if he really wants to. You
Oh,
can use
yeah.
him as a quarterback in some packages, but you flip him around to wide receiver for the most part. Just keep the opponent on your toes. So that's one thing that would be pretty cool to watch in the Heupel era down the road, and just trying to use a guy like Legend Bay to your advantage. So that's the first one we have that is committing here soon. These next two are both 2026 kids, and they are both some really big fish. So fast forward about 2 weeks from Jace Johnson's commitment date to August 18th. That is a Tuesday, and that is the day Savion Hyder will make his decision between Tennessee and it sounds like Michigan is the other school that is really contending for Savion Hyder from Richmond, Virginia, which is an area that Tennessee has recruited a lot over the years. Virginia specifically is one of those states Tennessee recruits a lot. I don't feel like quite as talent heavy as North Carolina, but it's another one of those states where they don't have SEC football, yet they do have a lot of talent. So some of these SEC programs that are a little further east in the league are able to take some of that talent in. And it would be a huge get for Tennessee just because you look at, the way the Josh Heupel offense functions. And if you were to plug in a talent like that at running back, it would be huge. And you're just upping your production. You already saw it with Dylan Sampson. Who knows what you could do with a guy like that?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I feel like no one truly knows where Hyder's going to go. I mean, I know he's said things on Twitter, like refuting things that like some reporters and stuff have said. So, I mean, we don't know yet whether or not he's going to go to Tennessee or Michigan, but I would like to say, I mean, why wouldn't you want to go to Tennessee after the production of Dylan Sampson last year, like coming out of nowhere and then, breaking the single season touchdown record and then, becoming an all SEC offensive player of the year. And then not to mention too, what like on as far as Michigan goes, I mean, Donovan Edwards, I mean, I didn't keep up with him too much, but he seemingly had a down year. And he was like even on the cover of College Football 25. I mean, so there was a lot of hype going around with him. And then if you compare Donovan Edwards' season to Dylan Sampson's last year, and I'm not saying that that's everything, because of course money talks in the era of NIL and everything too. But I mean, if you're wanting to put up some good stats, like I'm sure that Hyder would want to do, because I'm sure he wants to play at the next level at the NFL, then why not come to Tennessee? Because Heupel's had all the running backs have found success so far. I mean, even Jalen Wright and Jabari Small were like pretty decent backs for Tennessee. And like, I mean, getting a 5-star running back, I mean, that's not what Dylan Sampson was, but I mean, yet he broke all of these records and became one of Tennessee's best running backs ever. So, I mean, if I was Hyder, I would at least, strongly consider going to Tennessee, and that's what he's doing because it seems like it's down to Tennessee and Michigan. But I'm excited for that announcement coming up soon because it could be a huge gift for Tennessee, and then that would be what, like the third 5-star that they would have gotten in this class. And like, so, I mean, and then, everyone's joking around, like saying Tennessee is like 3-star university or whatever, getting the recruits. But I mean, look at right here. If Hyder commits Tennessee, then you got 3 5-stars. And then I think like 6 4-stars that are already currently committed. So, I mean, he's got a potential to completely change this class around and then, bump Tennessee up into a top 10 recruiting class. And then, there's still a couple other guys Tennessee could get too that could even boost that even more.
All right, so staying within the same week, jumping to August 22nd, and this is another big fish from Virginia as well. I believe Richmond is also where he's from too. Darius Gray will make his commitment, the 5-star interior offensive lineman, top-ranked offensive lineman in the class, at least interior offensive lineman, and it's a 5-team race there. You've got Tennessee, South Carolina, Clemson, LSU, and Ohio State in the mix. Not really sure who the favorite is at this point, but it would be amazing if Tennessee could get a 5-star tackle and a 5-star interior offensive lineman in the class, just because we haven't seen this staff really develop offensive linemen just yet because we've seen a lot of the guys that have come through here. They're Pruitt holdovers, guys that were in his system, but once they got with this new staff, it worked out well. But we haven't seen very many guys that have been recruited from high school and be plugged into this system. Like, I think I want to say this may be the first year where you see any of those guys starting with whoever is at center, be it Satterwhite, Moore, or whoever else. And then, of course, David Sanders at right tackle. So that would be a huge get for Tennessee. And again, another potential 5-star get for Tennessee in the class.
Yeah, I mean, I like that Tennessee has been targeting offensive line in this recruiting class because, like I mentioned earlier, it's been a little bit of an issue, whether it was on Nico or not. Like offensive line has been an issue for Tennessee's team. And, getting 2 5-star offensive linemen, I can't recall a time Tennessee's ever done that in a recruiting class. It may be the first time ever. So, I mean, I think he could be a huge get for Tennessee. And, I haven't seen really any of his film, but I mean, just the sheer fact that he's the number one interior offensive lineman in the country. I mean, he's slightly underweight, but I mean, like, I don't think that's a big issue. I mean, most of the time you see these offensive linemen bulk up pretty quickly. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited about it. But like you said, it's like a 5-team race. So, and there's some other pretty heavy hitters there. Like, it's gonna be difficult with Ohio State, and I know LSU always recruits pretty decently well too. So I feel like there's a little bit more up in the air with Gray committing to Tennessee, but we'll have to wait and see. But man, like I'm excited seeing just all these offensive linemen getting targeted because I think it's, the offensive line is arguably the most important thing to a football team outside of your quarterback. And even then, your quarterback's not going to be successful if he doesn't have time to throw the football.
Yeah, so that is all we have on commitment dates for now. Again, we will keep you guys posted on any new commitment dates here in the future. And I'm sure they'll come out. These guys don't always announce their commitments right away, or they could be like Joe Wyatt and say, "Hey, I'm going to push my commitment date back." But surprise, I'm committing to Tennessee today. Those are some things that tend to happen every now and again. But again, we will keep you updated with it as best we can as that stuff develops here with the final push in the recruiting world. Okay, so one more thing that is newsworthy this week that we got wind of, I believe, yesterday, and a little more news involving it today. Ramel Keaton, former Tennessee wide receiver, is coming back to Tennessee, to the Tennessee Titans, and he is replacing effectively Treylon Burks, a former first-round draft pick by the Tennessee Titans. And I'm going to try not to get into too much of a Titans fan rant about this, because look, I'm very happy for Ramel. You don't see very many Vols on the Titans roster just historically. I mean, I'm just trying to think back. Obviously, Albert Haynesworth is one of the biggest ones, literally. Justin Hunter is he's one of the last ones I can remember. And it's certainly the last wide receiver I can remember that played for the Titans. They come every now and again, but they're not around often. But I think ultimately, for some people, not everybody, it is something that can help draw you in and make you a little bit more interested in your local professional team. And maybe that's the case with Keaton. Obviously, he's going to have to go through training camp and cuts and whatnot, which is something we'll also keep an eye on for you guys here in the next month as all that stuff is getting ready to happen. I believe the Hall of Fame game is either this week or next. I forget which one, but it's coming up on us. It's coming up on us here in just a little bit. But it just what I hate is that he is replacing a guy that replaced a guy that could have been the franchise's best receiver. And we were told Treylon Burks is going to be this next big thing, and he only played, I think, 12 games in a 3 or 4 year period. He had 699 receiving yards and one touchdown. That wasn't even a touchdown catch. It was a fumble recovery in the end zone from Derrick Henry. He essentially had one good game against the Packers and then just peaced out. So, again, very happy for Ramel, but and I, in a way, I am glad even more so that this era of stupidity is over with the Titans. At least it seems like. But maybe he gets involved this year. I know Tennessee drafted a lot of receivers. Chimdike from Florida is one. Alec Iamaner, another one from Stanford that is one that I'm hoping ends up being a really good player for Tennessee. But good to see Ramel getting a shot after he had a fairly nice training camp for the Raiders last season, despite not making the roster.
Yeah, no, I was looking up his stats because, like, as you know, like I don't really like keep up with the NFL as much as I do with college, and it doesn't seem like Ramel Keaton's gotten too much playing time. But I mean, it is exciting to like see him back at Tennessee, and of course, I'm not a Titans fan. I'm like notoriously a Colts fan. Every Titans fan here, please don't hate me. But
well, here's the thing: a lot of the Tennessee fans that are probably watching this were Peyton fans when he was with the Colts, so it's okay.
Yeah, and I will say when Peyton Manning was going through the whole free agency thing and everything like that, I was really hoping that he was going to go to the Titans, even though I am a Colts fan. I mean, I thought it'd be cool for him to be back in Nashville, but I mean, I don't know, like outsiders looking in, when I knew that the Titans traded AJ Brown away for Traylon Burks, I honestly didn't know what was going on. I don't know how Titans fans viewed it. Like, honestly, I was going to ask you like how you felt about the whole, yeah. I figured.
We all felt that, Jordan. Some people point to different points, a few different points as the beginning of the end for what was a decent run for the Titans. You can point to the wild card round against the Ravens in the 2020 playoffs, or the following season is what a lot of people point to when they lost to the Bengals in the divisional round. That and trading AJ Brown away for Traylon Burks are probably the two that you could argue were that really marked the downfall of that organization. So again, happy for Ramel Keaton, but
yeah,
that was a very very difficult era of Titans football to watch.
yeah. I mean, I was there at the Titans practices pretty much every Wednesday because I used to intern for one of the local radio or news stations in Nashville, and that was like a big topic a lot of time, like outside the offensive line, because I know the Titans offensive line was struggling during the time. I mean, besides the offensive line, Traylon Burks was a big hot button topic for Tennessee. And like, he's dealt with his injuries and stuff like that. And let me ask you this, because I haven't looked into it too much. Was it non-contact? Did he seriously like break his collarbone just reaching up for a one-handed catch and no one like touched him?
I think it was, Jordan.
That's insane.
He's just so fragile. And like, he was a versatile player at Arkansas. I don't know if he was a first round pick worthy player at Arkansas, but I was hoping he would be more than he was. I didn't expect him to be the next AJ Brown, but the crazy thing is he's not even the worst of the Titans' first round picks, because before that you had Caleb Farley, who I think he may have only played 12 games. I think I might be confusing that with Traylon Burks, but Caleb Farley, they knew he was having back problems when he was at Virginia Tech, and they still drafted him anyway, knowing he wasn't going to be able to play much. And he's still not even the worst one. The worst one was old Isaiah Wilson, who played like 2 snaps at tackle, but got in trouble for going who knows how much over the speed limit in Georgia, as they do, and then doing donuts over in Broadway. So, yeah, that ended his career here pretty quickly. And then last I heard, he was with the Giants, and I think this is legit. He got in trouble with the Giants for stealing cafeteria food and refusing to run laps.
It's wild. It's unfortunate, honestly, because I don't hate the Titans at all. I mean, I like good competition. Like Titans are putting up a fair fight with the Colts for a minute there. And everything, which you like to see. But sad situation of Traylon Burks, honestly. Like all the pressure that was put on him, and then like the injury after injury, and then having to be compared to AJ Brown, which is not a fair comparison whatsoever. Since he's like one of the best receivers in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, at least Ramel Keaton seemingly is finally going to get his shot to prove himself on an NFL roster since he didn't really get much time playing with the Raiders. I mean, who knows what happens with roster cuts and everything like that, but it is good seeing a former Volunteer get an opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and unfortunately, his career was a little bit of um, a roller coaster at Tennessee, I guess you could say. Had a nice second year, and you were hoping he'd take a big jump in his final season under Heupel, and that did not happen. And some of that could be attributed to quarterback play, but also I just think he had some issues with drops as
Yeah.
well, and that was a little bit problematic for Tennessee. But you just never know with the NFL. I've come to realize, and he could very well make the cut at Tennessee. It's possible because I just look around at some of the guys that have come out of Tennessee lately, and the name that comes out that jumps out to me that made it last year onto an NFL roster that I was not expecting to at all was Jalen McCullough. Um, he never really shined at Tennessee, I wouldn't say, but he ended up being like one of the best rookies all camp for the Rams, and suddenly he's like one of their diamonds in the rough that they found uh, going into the 2024 season. So maybe that happens with Ramel Keaton. You never know. You really never know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've seen a lot of Tennessee players that like didn't necessarily shine too much at Tennessee. Like I think we mentioned some of them before, like end up becoming successful in the NFL. Like, I mean, Shy Tuttle, like I thought he was a little bit of a disappointment at Tennessee. And then I think he was starting for the Saints at one point. And a lot of like defensive backs that like I'm forgetting names off the top of my head, but I remember like one of them, I don't even remember seeing him play all too much at Tennessee. Like he was like a rotational corner, and then he ended up starting in the NFL for a bit. I wish I could remember the name, but like, yeah, like you said, you never know in the NFL, and maybe Ramel Keaton, get some playing time and maybe ends up being successful. Maybe fix the drops issue too, because that was one thing that drove me mad back in the day. But you never know.
All right, last thing here from Dallas. Over under Boo defensive and offensive touchdowns at 4. Do we take the over or the under here?
Under.
I'm going to go under too.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much he'll be used offensively. Again, if he's even a part of the program at this point in time, but it does look like he will be. But I'm going to side with you, Jordan. I'm going to say under.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. Like, I feel like if he's reportedly going to be playing some receiver for Tennessee, as long as like he's still on the roster and everything like that. But like, I don't think that he's going to be on the field a whole lot. Like, I think he'll be a rotational guy coming in. And then like, how often do you see like a wide receiver number 4 getting like 4+ touchdowns, unless it was like Joe Burrow's team with LSU, where they were like all seemingly getting 20 receiving touchdowns. I mean, I just don't think you see it much. So, I mean,
No,
I think honestly, I think Boo Carter probably be lucky to get 3 this season.
I'd say so too. All right, Jordan, that's all I got. What about you?
I think that's pretty much it. Once again, thank you guys for all tuning in. Lots of comments today, which we love to see because we love interacting with y'all. Yeah, so just like keep tuning in every week. Make sure to like, subscribe, share it to all your friends. See someone in the street, flag them down. You see them wearing a Tennessee shirt, be like, hey, I see you like Tennessee. Check out Tennessee Volunteers live at the Voice of College Football Network. The word of mouth marketing works pretty well. But we appreciate all of you, and thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a pretty fun one, to be honest. I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, been a lot of fun, and we've had a lot to talk about this week, which we didn't think would be the case going into the week, but sometimes that just happens. So again, we appreciate all of you for hanging out with us tonight. For Jordan Binkley, I am Tucker Harlan. We will talk to you guys again next week.